This is Geek Gab with your hosts, Dorrinal, Brian Niemeier, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are back. That's right, Geek Gab for Saturday, January 16th, 2016. When I was but a wee tyke, the year 2016 would have been synonymous with the far-flung future. In fact, I remember a tabletop role-playing game from the 80s, Cyberpunk, in the big black box, was set in 2019. I hate to be a Debbie Downer on the subject, but I don't think I'm going to get cyberspace decks that I can plug into my brain and a metal arm by 2019, though I suppose I could be wrong. Now, while I take a sip of tasty, fresh water, I'm going to pause for a second and allow my co-hosts a chance to say hello. Dorrinal, how was your week?
Hello. It's been a frustrating week. I started off the future with a nice head cold, so I've been hanging out, sleeping a lot, geeking out a little bit. I was looking forward to the direct neural interface, like you were. Alas, I woke up to a keyboard and mouse. How's it going with you, Brian?
There is good news on that front, though. The Cyberpunk game had a sequel, and that sequel is being made into a video game by the same people who make the Witcher series, and they're releasing that video game this year. So.
Oh, are they actually releasing it? Honestly, a couple of years ago I saw the videos with Mike Pondsmith, did some promos with them, met with the video game designers. Always a good sign. But I just assumed it was vaporware like any other MMO. So I'm happy to hear that's being released.
We interrupted Brian, though. Sorry, man. Sorry, I'll go punch myself in the face after the show is over. How has your week been, Brian?
His week's been muted. What happened to his mic?
He's not there. He was there before the show, honest. He was there. We said hi. We got together. We talked for like one whole sentence before we had to start the show. It was extensive show prep. Speaking of extensive show prep, this week we're going to be talking about, at least partially, part of the show, we're going to be talking about The Revenant, Leonardo DiCaprio's new movie, which is another in his long sequence of Oscar bait films, which he has apparently been nominated for an Oscar for. But I saw it. Dorrinal saw it. Brian, however, has not seen it, as far as I know. So perhaps that is why he is silent out of shame. He did, however, see The Forest, which is the new Natalie Dornan film. If you don't remember Natalie Dornan, she's the chick in the Hunger Games movies with her head half shaven, the media chick, not any one of the combatants. So I haven't seen The Forest. Have you seen The Forest, Dorrinal?
I have not. Although your mention of a chick with half-shaved head really makes me not want to go out and see that.
Well, she doesn't have a half-shaved head in The Forest. She has a half-shaved head in Hunger Games because, like 2016, the Hunger Games just set in the future. And so you have to shave people's heads in weird ways so everyone knows when they're looking at the screen it's the future.
And have weird portmanteaus for names like Katniss.
And like strange tattoos, like the entire Divergent series. I admit, I am ashamed to admit I've seen both of the Divergent movies.
But seriously, I think I speak for everybody who listens to the Gab, and when I ask, what is wrong with you, Daddy Warpig?
I have to watch movies. It's part of the gig of being aware of. I actually had to add a new movie to my must-watch list, not because I really. Oh, Bradford Walker in the comments, by the way, points out that Natalie Dorner is in the TV adaptation of Game of Thrones. She plays Marjorie Tyrell, who is the wife who is married to the vicious little shit. Who everybody hates, the prince, and who dies. I'm spoiling a book and a TV show.
So hold on, you spoiled the A Song of Fire and Ice series by saying that one of the characters dies.
Yes, I know. Brutal revelation. Somebody in A Song of Ice and Fire dies. But anyways,
blew my mind.
That's Natalie Dorner. On to our topic though, the Revenant, and we're hoping to get Brian back. He's having technical problems. He's dropping in and dropping out, so we'll give him a chance to say hi. Oh wait, I think I heard him.
Hello.
I did hear him.
Hello.
I apparently had to drop out and come back in. I don't know what it was.
You know, I have to do that sometimes. At a party, when nobody pays attention to you, you have to come back into the room again just to do it spectacularly enough so people turn their heads and go, ooh, who's that?
I'll come in again. Yeah. The Spanish Inquisition.
Wow.
So where were we?
You're still dropping in and out, though, dude. I'm sorry.
Really?
It's not your week.
All right, what's going on with you, Brian?
Did you not sacrifice the chicken to the gods of tech?
I did.
Are you not burning the right color of incense, the right smell of incense? I mean...
Yeah, I must not have.
But you have not seen The Revenant. No,
I attempted to see The Revenant. Went to my local theater on Tuesday afternoon, as is my wont, and was surprised to find it packed full of retirees who had sold out the showing. I mean, I was like 5 minutes late, but usually I have the place to myself, so I went to go see The Forest instead.
Was there a sudden emergency cancellation of Matlock and all the retirees just headed out to go see whatever the heck was on that day?
Right? That must be it.
That's going to be my retirement. Now that you guys pointed that out, that's going to be my retirement. I'm going to find a bunch of other old folks and be like, hey, there's a new movie out. I heard it's violent. Let's go see it.
Not a bad life.
I mean, seriously, and he's not kidding either. The movie is violent. The movie is more violent than the Quentin Tarantino movie we talked about last week, which lets you know how violent it is.
Gory, even. Not just violent, it's just gory.
Oh, yeah, and I'm going to spoil a little part of it. You may have heard that Leonardo DiCaprio actually slept inside the hollowed-out carcass of a horse.
In the funniest scene of the movie, which had no scenes written to be funny, I may point out. It is not a funny movie, and that was the funniest thing I saw all week.
He does actually sleep inside the hollowed-out carcass of a horse. And it's not a fake prosthetic horse. It's a real horse. And I don't know if he does all the carving himself, but he literally has a knife, and they're cutting out huge sheets, thick sheets of meat from the inside of this horse and hauling it out and dropping it on the snow. So when we say this movie is gory, I do not want you to underestimate the amount of blood and gore in this film. He literally hollows out a horse and crawls inside to keep himself warm in a freezing blizzard. So you cannot really underestimate the amount of gore that is present at different points in this movie. It's not like a cartoonish blood. It's not like The Shining, which dumped a river of blood down the hall. It is very real, very visceral, very brutal gore. And there are times, it's not like every shot goes for the direct hostile or Saw level viciousness and brutality, but it does not stint from showing blood. So just be aware, if blood makes you queasy, this is not the movie for you. Also, if gingers make you queasy, this is not the movie for you. Not that there are a lot of soulless gingers in this movie, but one gentleman from The Force Awakens, which we discussed a couple of weeks ago, that is Hux, the Imperial officer who was apparently also a Weasley, is in this movie and does a damn good job. Wouldn't you say so, Dorrinal?
It was yeah, actually, I liked the actor and I liked his character. I thought it was well done, and it's a victory for gingers, I think, around the world that he's in 2 currently running movies in the theaters right now. You could actually just go to the theater and buy a couple tickets and watch that man act for 5 hours straight.
And it's worth it. Either of you guys seen Frank from a couple years ago?
No.
Yeah, Michael Fassbender, and I'm pretty sure that was Domhnall Gleeson. Is that the actor's name?
I have no idea what his name is. I confess, I haven't even looked it up.
Oh, no, his last name's Gleeson, but he's in that too, and yeah, he's a stellar actor. I like his style. Hux was even one of my favorite parts of the Force Awakens, so I can't wait to finally see Revenant when the retirees go home, when it's nap time at the rest home. Yeah. I'll try again.
Maybe somebody spilled alcohol on the shuffleboard court and they just had nothing else to do. They wanted to go see Leonardo DiCaprio be brutalized by nature for a couple of hours.
Oh, boy. Yes,
Right.
the equine cocoon, the favorite shelter of pioneers and soccer hooligans alike. So.
It did remind me of the scene from Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back where Han Solo guts a tauntaun, only this was lots longer, and the horse was not stuffed full of what looked like tapioca pudding.
Yeah, but Leonardo DiCaprio, of course, still had a lightsaber, right? If I understand the reviews correctly.
So let's talk about The Revenant real quick, or let's talk about what The Revenant is about. If you haven't heard, The Revenant it's about...
No, you see, here's my problem with the movie. I'm going to stop you even before you start. The thing is that it doesn't know what it wants to be about, or it wants to be about a lot of things. What is it? It's some scenes, it's a man versus nature film. And it doesn't really do that very well. And I can elaborate on that later without being too spoiled. It wants to be a pretentious art film with dream sequences and shots that aren't establishing shots, but they're like, metaphors for the transformation and for his survival and everything. It's also a revenge story, in a couple of senses. There's the main revenge story that was spoiled in the trailer. Leonardo DiCaprio has to kill Tom Hardy because Tom Hardy's an English guy with an American accent. You have to kill those guys. I mean, that's what it is. That's what the movie is, and it wants to be all of those things, and it tries to be all of those things. Is that what you got from it?
That's not what I was going to talk about, no. What I was going to talk about is this. The Revenant is set in the early days of the Old West. Leonardo DiCaprio plays a scout. Him and his half-Indian son are scouts for a fur company trapping furs up the Missouri River back in the days where this side of the Missouri River was controlled by the Pawnee Indians, who, at the beginning of the movie, are known to be hostile and dangerous. They are risking their lives to wrest a fortune in furs from the wilderness, collect the furs on their boat, head back downstream to Fort Kiowa, which is civilization, and then get paid by the fur trapping company. There are 40 men on this expedition into the trackless wilderness, and in the film's very first scene, they get attacked by Indians, and many of them do not survive. It is lengthy, it is brutal, it is ugly. And then, In his job as scouting for the remnants of this fur company, Leonardo DiCaprio's character gets attacked by a bear. His character's last name is Glass, by the way, so you'll forgive me if I refer to him as Glass. He gets attacked and mauled by a bear and is barely hanging on to his life, no pun intended, when Tom Hardy, whose character's name is Fitzgerald, does something foolish, murders his son, and leaves him for dead. And the rest of the movie is about Leonardo DiCaprio in the dead of winter. Again, sharing similarities with the movie we discussed last week, Hateful Eight. They're in the middle of a harsh, brutal winter with killing temperatures, far from civilization, left with only the clothes on their back and the gear they can carry. In the middle of this brutal winter, he abandons Leonardo DiCaprio's character half buried in a shallow grave. And the rest of the movie is about Mr. Glass digging his way literally out of his own grave and making his way across the wilderness to get revenge on the man who killed his son. That's actually all I was going to talk about, was a basic orientation of the plot. If you know anything about the history of the West, a couple of characters who show up. One of the characters is Jim Bridger, the famous trapper and tracker who later scouted out the Salt Lake Valley and talked about it with the Mormon pioneers, and also Captain Leavenworth, after whom Fort Leavenworth is named, I believe. That's all I was really going to talk about, but if you want to go into deeper analysis of the movie, I will allow you.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Yes, that is an accurate synopsis of the narrative that this movie is filmed about, right? But the movie itself is also really strange. It opens with that brutal attack by the Ree Indians, right? And it's no Saving Private Ryan. There's no meaning attached to it. It's just kind of cheesy, crappy. You don't care about what's happening right here. Yeah, it's brutal, it's violent and everything, but they're just establishing what kind of, world this is, right? What kind of brutal frontier the characters are in right now. And then weirdness happens, especially after the bear attack, when he's, so hurt and he's having fever dreams and hallucinations and everything. And the movie just jumps from sort of this type of movie to that type of movie over and over again. I don't know.
Then you have a lot of actual dream sequences, and I'm not a big fan of dream sequences because they are hallucinatory and obscure. Filmmakers who use dream sequences like to pack a lot of symbolism into them, and basically you don't understand them unless you spend time unpacking them and thinking about them, and usually it's not worth it. That was actually my least favorite scene in the entirety of Babylon 5, was the weird dream sequence they had with the Raven and Garibaldi and all of that. I hated it. And I know they were like prefiguring plot events that were supposed to take place over the next 3 seasons of the show. I just didn't give a shit. And I didn't want to spend the time to try and figure out how it fit in with the rest of the series. And the dream sequences that pop up, other than the fact that they establish the relationship between Mr. Glass and his Indian wife and his Indian son, and establish why he cared so much about his son and why they're alone out in the middle of nowhere, and what is his history with the Indians, and I can't remember. Oh no, the Pawnee. He was with the Pawnee tribe. That's why he speaks Pawnee. And the Indians who they're running from, they kept on saying the Ree, which I don't know what tribe that is. I've never heard that name before. And I kept on thinking, do they mean the Cree Indians? I don't know, but he lived with the Pawnee tribe, actually lived in their village, had married a Pawnee bride, and at a couple of different points in this movie, he meets up with Pawnee, and so they're actually important. The flashbacks are important in establishing that, but as far as being lucid or interesting, I didn't find them lucid or interesting. I found them annoying. I wanted to get them out of the way so I could watch the rest of the movie.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, what can I say? I felt the same way. I think in fact, I think there were too many of the dream sequences. I think they wanted to establish the history of him and his wife and his son and everything. What happened with the Pawnee Indians? That sort of tragic backstory. And they just kept showing it. They kept showing his wife. He's hallucinating his wife. There's even a really, really awkward scene near the end of the movie where she's like floating above him in a field.
Yeah.
It's just like it just totally shattered the tone, and that should have been edited out. I mean, I'm an idiot who doesn't make movies. I could have edited this movie, right? There's just so many of those dream sequences, and they weren't. If they were saying something, if there was any symbolism in there, I didn't care, because like I said, it kept jumping from this sort of art movie with meaningful sequences that actually completely destroy the revenge narrative or the survival narrative, which were working together at some time. and they were working together, but then they hurt each other, right? Because they were so focused on things like what's Fitzgerald doing? Like, what's Tom Hardy's character doing? What is Leonardo DiCaprio? What is Glass seeing in his dreams? That they skip over the survival story. Like, they show him escaping from hostile Indians down a river, and they don't show how he survives the hypothermia. Like, you're like, oh, well, he's going down river. He's gonna die now, and they just skip over that. They're like, oh, he built a fire while he was freezing to death. Oh, okay. I guess this isn't a survival movie then. I guess we'll just find out what happens next.
See, if I could compare that with the Castaway, the Tom Hanks movie, they went through, or again, even other survival movies I've seen, they typically take a lot of care to show every step of how they go about surviving the circumstances they're in, because it's important, because that's why you're watching that movie. I mean, they show how Tom Hanks makes a fire. They show how Tom Hanks takes care of a tooth that is rotting. All of each individual step of how he can take care of these common things that you would expect to come up. And if you leave something like that hanging to where the audience is wondering, it wouldn't necessarily have taken a long time to show how he survived that, but the fact they didn't, and I had that exact same question. I mean, I'm elaborating on this because I had that exact same question when he actually has to go into the river, and I'm thinking, wow, how's he going to get out of this? He's going to freeze, because you're in the lip. I mean, there's snow on the ground. There's snow piled 7-8 inches on the ground at the lowest it is. The entire world is frozen. They take pains to show when they're digging this grave for his character that the dirt itself is frozen rock hard, and it is painful to dig out even just a foot of dirt from the snow, from the ground. And so you would expect someone to get hit hard by the winter and killed if they are soaked to the bone in the river, and their hair is wet, and their clothes are soaked with water. How do you get out of that? It's a great question of survival, and the fact they kind of glossed over that, it wasn't for me a huge problem, but it was enough to make me go, okay, that's an odd omission for the type of film it's trying to be.
Yeah, that was my, which is funny because that was my main complaint. It doesn't know what type of movie it wants to be. And I was talking with my wife after the movie, and because we were trying to figure out whether we liked it or not. And she made a really, really good point. And even though it was this weird sort of melange of whatever the director's influences are, right? We watched the whole movie. Like, we weren't chatting with each other. We weren't making fun of things. The only time we came close to making fun of a scene was we both flinched at that that dream sequence where his dead wife is floating over him in a field. Like that was the one, and it was a fraction of a second long, but it was the only thing that really bothered us. And so we watched the whole movie through, and it was like it was. I'm having a hard time saying that I liked it, but I watched the whole thing. I was engaged the whole time.
So would you recommend I go see it, or should I not waste my time? Both of you guys.
It is an incredibly well done film. I mean, any nits that I'm picking in the movie are, let's say, in terms of percentage-wise, this is a movie that is 97% impeccable. And
Bold statement.
It's got brilliant cinematography. The performances are incredible. Leonardo DiCaprio, there's only one moment where I thought, oh, I've heard that voice before. That's DiCaprio's I'm trying hard to act voice.
He's yelling?
What?
Well, he's often accused of confusing yelling for emoting.
Yes, and he did that at one point in the movie, but only one point. The rest of the time, he did a really good job. And it's a situation in which the character would be yelling. It just didn't come across as authentic or natural the way the rest of them did. He was overacting. He was trying to put too much emphasis onto something that really didn't need as much emphasis as he was trying to put into it.
I gotta hand it to him. He does seem to have improved. Just as an aside here, you think it's because he's been working with Scorsese and Tarantino that he's picked up a few pointers? I don't know. He seems better than he was even 10 years ago.
He really has. The problem with his choices recently, his material choices, is that he's too obviously trying hard to win an Oscar. And he's not making good material choices for good material. He's making good material choices to try and win an Oscar. And I think that kind of causes problems with the career. It's what's blighting Will Smith's career right now, is that he's really trying hard to win an Oscar. And I don't know that it will or won't happen. I don't know that. I think DiCaprio.
He'll have to wait until he's over 50. Then that's when they'll give it to him. But go ahead.
I think DiCaprio and Will Smith both, depending on their performances, could easily be worthy of an Oscar, depending on the year. But trying too hard to win it is just it seems kind of desperate, and it's distracting.
The chat agrees with you. Dorrinal and Bradford Walker both.
Yeah. But Tom Hardy, who is an excellent actor and has almost uniformly turned in excellent performances in everything I've seen him in. I'm not saying he's always done that. I'm just saying everything I've seen him in, he's done an incredible job. The Warrior was brilliant. He did a great job in Inception with DiCaprio.
This isn't fair, but what about Star Trek Nemesis? I'm honestly curious.
Was Tom Hardy in Star Trek Nemesis?
He was Shinzon. He was the anti-Picard, the main villain.
Oh, dear.
Yeah,
I didn't know that was him. That's one of his early roles, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, glad I've never seen that one.
It's such a terribly written role. I tell you what, Shinzon in Nemesis reminds me most of Kylo Ren. He's an emo, whiny, cryy villain. He's not a tough, intimidating villain, and Tom Hardy really is best used in tough, intimidating roles. I mean, he even did a great job as Bane in The Dark Knight Rises.
So I know what you're thinking. We just go ahead and go full circle, go full meta, and cast Tom Hardy as a Sith Lord in Star Wars. It's basically who's playing in Dark Knight Rises. Cast him as Darth Bane. Imagine that.
So Hux did a great job as the captain of the company. The kid who was playing Jim Bridger, who I have seen before, but I don't. I've seen him before in supporting roles. I've never seen him in a lead. He did a great job. And even the extras who were in the fur company had small roles, but they did a good job in their roles. So there's no terrible performances. There's no even better mediocre performances, I would argue.
Yeah, I agree. I think the acting was really one of the strongest points. There was nothing, no performances really were bad, and sort of nothing that you'd notice. I mean, everybody really did their job or, excelled at the role, especially the main characters.
Yeah. So, I mean, cinematography is beautiful. It is not confusing in the sense that you don't ever wonder what has happened, why it's happened, and where things are going. There's some things left unexplained, like how he survived the hypothermia from falling in the river. Granted. But the movie, the plot, isn't confusing. You're never left wondering, okay, I don't understand exactly what's happening here, which, by the way, is incredibly difficult for a director to pull off. To get away with a complicated story without making you at least confused some of the time. And so, yeah, it's 97% great, and the other 3% of flaws, which are there and are real, they may or may not bother you. They didn't bother me, obviously, as much as they bothered Dorrinal.
Yeah, well, I have a question for Brian and for anybody else who wants to see this movie. Did you like No Country for Old Men?
Oh, you had to bring that up, didn't you? Everything except the last act.
So that's my problem with it, is that I absolutely love No Country for Old Men, which is a far superior movie. But you get to the ending, and if you don't see it coming, or if you never read the book, which is my case, you get to the very ending and you're like, what the fuck? And then you have to. After a little while, you realize, oh, I wasn't watching a traditional narrative movie. I was watching an art movie. And then when you look at when you change your perspective, you see No Country for Old Men, and you're like, that's a fantastic movie. And that's what this is. We went into it. My wife and I went to watch this awesome survival revenge movie, and the things that bothered me about it were the tonal shifts and the artsy shots and everything. If you don't mind that kind of movie, you are going to absolutely love this. This is great. Or if you like the violence and the gore and you like the survival thing and you love the acting and the actors and the art stuff doesn't bother you, then you should definitely see this. If the art movie style turns you off, if you hate that shit, if No Country for Old Men was the worst thing you ever seen because of the ending, then that's the only reason to skip this movie. Otherwise, I'd recommend it.
The ending of the movie, without getting into spoilers, the ending of the movie wasn't bad, but honestly, I thought it was a little bit too precious, a little bit too... It was trying too hard to make some kind of deep moral point that didn't need to be made, and it didn't really successfully make it anyway. And I'm trying to... Here's the thing. You say, okay, we're not going to have character do action Y, because that's wrong. And that's the moral point we're making with the movie. That's wrong. But instead he does action Z, which has the exact same effect as action Y, only we're offloading responsibility onto some other character. And then you say that you've made some kind of deep point. You haven't. You haven't made a deep point. Whether I steal a cookie from the cookie jar, which is wrong, or whether I allow the dog to jump up on the counter and knock the cookies over and pick one up, it's still me taking a cookie, okay? It has the exact same effect.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The ending wasn't perfect.
So, we are a little bit over time here, so I'll give Brian the last chance to say or ask anything he wants before we take off.
Okay. Well, since I was mid-comment here, I'm going to take us back to Star Wars The Force Awakens for a second, because I had never tired of discussing that. Last night, some friends and I got into a pretty deep discussion about the movie. And I brought up your idea about switching Han and Leia's roles, by the way, Daddy Warpig, which they thought was genius. But a way to potentially improve the ending. So, in case anyone hasn't seen it, mild spoiler alert about the ending of The Force Awakens. So instead of the ending we got, what if Han actually succeeded in turning Kylo Ren back to the light side? He agrees, okay, I'm going to go back with you to the Resistance, I'm going to leave Starkiller Base. But then Rey, when she sees him about to board the Falcon, objects. Says, no, this is the dude who mind raped me. No, he's evil. You know, we can't trust him. Because as an unguided Force user, she is actually flirting with the dark side because she doesn't know to stay detached, right? She doesn't know not to draw on her emotions. So that is what precipitates the Kylo Ren fight. She starts it and Han is accidentally killed trying to break them up. And it comes to a draw with the chasm opening up and separating them with no clear winner, and Kylo and Chewie leave in the Falcon. Rey looks, about to be dead man, about to explode to the planet, when Hux comes by, basically tells her, come with me if you want to live, and the Supreme Leader will complete your training, and she turns to the dark side. So we have a total inversion of where they started at the beginning.
That's a whole lot to comment on in the last minute of a show.
Yeah. Sorry, we can put a pin in that.
Just blew my mind.
Any last words, Dorrinal?
Nah, we're good. Go see the Revenant. It's all right.
Yeah, if the gore and the violence and the themes don't actively, if that's something that you can handle, and not everyone can, go see it. It's an incredibly well done movie. Don't let the discussion of some flaws in it dissuade you. There is no movie without flaws. It's 97% an impeccably done movie, and it's worth seeing at least once. Thanks for tuning in, folks. This is Geek Gab with Dorrinal, Brian Niemeier, and me, Daddy Warpig. We are signing off for tonight, but we will be back.